The last 12 months of this podcast have been so great, especially all of our guests. So, in this year end episode of Student Ministry Connection, we're highlighting each of our 12 guests from 2025. Welcome to Student Ministry Connection. My name is Steve Cullum, and as many of you probably know from listening to previous episodes, I've been serving in student ministry since 1999, when I was first invited by my youth pastor. And ever since then, I have loved working with teenagers, but I also love working with others who love working with teenagers. And this podcast is a culmination of all of that. Not only do I get to share some things that God has taught me over the years, but I get to talk with others who lead and serve, and together we get to learn from them. And over the course of 2025, we have had 12 amazing guests on the podcast. Maybe you listened to all of them, or maybe you only caught a couple. So on this year-end episode, I wanted to highlight each of them to either remind you of what they discussed or to point out why you should go back and listen to that episode, especially if you missed it the first time. But before we get into that, I want to remind you that we are almost at our 10-year anniversary. It's coming up in February of 2026, and I would love to celebrate with all of you. So how are we celebrating? Well, that's where you come in. I'd love to hear your ideas. Please reach out on social media, or you can send me an email at studentministryconnection@gmail.com. I'll be putting some ideas together over the next few weeks, and I can't wait to hear what you suggest. Well, let's start these highlights with episode 151, where I talked with Derry Prenkert of Standing Stone Ministry. He talked about how you can unlock your ministry potential with the Working Genius.
Working Genius model gives individuals immediate clarity on where they thrive and struggle in getting work done. So you take this 15-minute assessment, you look at it, you read through it, and you go, so I thrive at this point in getting work done. I come alive. I'm Captain America. I could do this all day. Then here's the spots where you're like, no, kill me now. like I just can't do this. Not don't really kill me, but like, can I delegate this? Do I have to? It's immediately, and it shows how it works in the workflow. Then on teams, it helps teams discover ways to position themselves for maximum joy and effectiveness. Because Steve, your Working Genius mix is different from mine. And so if we're on a team together, there may be places where I get frustrated that you come alive or vice versa. But the trick is we automatically assume everybody loves the part of the work the same as we do.
Yeah. Derry also heads up a ministry called the Youth Ministry Leader Cohort. So if you're looking to get connected more online with other youth leaders, make sure you check that out. The next episode was 152, where we talked to Ashley Bohinc about how to make your church middle school, and also why middle school is such an incredibly important ministry.
I think, if you don't have a middle school specific environment, I understand it is hard. You need space, you need money, you need people to do that. I hope you're aiming for that one day. I hope it's in your plan. But I would say the first thing is, even if you're in a combined environment, every meeting you have for programming, for your messages, for your events, are you planning in your meetings a time to talk about how do we make this matter for a sixth grader? How do we make sure we're thinking about the parents of a sixth grader who are just entering into the youth ministry space and are probably terrified that there's 18-year-olds in the room? What are we doing to think about the eighth graders in this, or the seventh graders? I would say most youth workers, if they're being honest, every single one of them leans either high school or middle school. Maybe 95% would probably say high school. And I understand. And I'm not mad about it. I understand it. I would love to see that change in my lifetime. But I would say, because you lean that way, you probably think that way when you're planning your programming, you're planning your communication, you're planning your events. Just simply blocking out time. Okay, but how does this work for a sixth grader? Maybe talk to your small group leaders, talk to the parents of that age group to make sure you're even filtering through their lens. So that would be one way to make it middle school, is just to put them on the agenda.
One of the big things that we talked about on that episode was Ashley's upcoming Make It Middle School curriculum, and that's now been out for several months, so make sure you check that out. On episode 153, I talked with Mike McGarry of Youth Pastor Theologian about the theology of fun and games. Because while Mike loves theology, he also loves to have fun with teenagers, and he talks about why both of those are important.
I just reject the choice between fun and serious. I mean, God created life, God created laughter. He didn't need to make joy. God chose to create joy. God chose to create laughter. And so, yeah, I think fun and games are just a part of human flourishing from creation. What does it mean for us to be created in God's image? And I think part of that culture making, part of that human flourishing has to do with just enjoying the world that God made, enjoying fellowship with one another. And I really think that it's hard to love someone who you can't laugh with. And so if we want students in our youth groups to be vulnerable with one another and to be honest about the burdens that they're carrying and to share their more than surface level prayer requests, but they can't throw a dodgeball at each other and they can't laugh together and they refuse to play together, then that is the deep stuff's just never going to happen. Because guess what? They don't like each other. Like, do the people in your Bible study like each other or not? Like, do I really believe that the most exciting part of ministry is leading kids to Jesus? So if that's true, then how do we create a culture of life and a culture of joy, a culture that embodies the fruit of the gospel? And I think that culture is going to be loud for the most part and just lively and full of joy. I just don't think that we need to choose between having fun or going deep.
Be sure to connect more with Mike on the Youth Pastor Theologian website and podcast. On episode 156, I talked with Dan Lynch, who's the director of Colorado Winter Camps, a collaborative camp that brings together nearly 50 churches from Colorado every winter. So Dan shares the story of how Colorado Winter Camps came to be and also why you should consider doing something like that in your area.
Here's the thing is like, I believe collaborating with other youth pastors, other churches is something every church should do. If anything else, it'll, and it doesn't mean that you have to do like winter camps. It could be anything. It could be a worship night. It could be a mission trip. It could be whatever event, summer camps. I would highly recommend every church to step out of, like I said, step out of their four walls, right? I think sometimes churches kind of get into their own brand a lot. They're like, hey, and I don't want to kind of get into it. I don't want, everybody has the different ways of doing it, but it's just like, this is our brand of church, and we're going to continue to do things the way that our brand and then shows. And so then you got students who grow up with that brand of church, and then they graduate and then they head off to college or they go somewhere else and they're like, wait, I can't find that same brand. Where's that at? And so they don't know what it's like to partner with the Big C Church.
Yeah.
They've never seen or been a part of what's happening in the Big C Church. And so that's always my encouragement for churches and youth pastors is find a way every year to expose your students to what's happening in the Big C Church.
On episode 158, I talked with Dr. Ken Castor, who is a veteran youth leader, but also the creator of the Make a Difference Youth Bible. And we talked a lot about how to get teenagers engaged in scriptures. And this is one of the tips that he shared.
Teenagers would really benefit by seeing older people reading the Bible. So as a youth pastor, let young people see you with the Word of God open in your lap while you're taking notes and underlining and reading. Show them a Bible that you're using that, is all scuffed up and has tape on the outside because it's always with you and you're always looking at it. And then let them see the inside of it and see that you've got different highlights and different notes from different times. And you keep going back to those passages and writing in more. So let them see it. And this is number one challenge I give to parents all the time. Like, how do we get our kids to read the Bible? And I always say, let them see you reading the Bible. Deuteronomy 6 is so good. Model it in such a way that they're going to pick it up and start doing it themselves. Let's make it practical. On your next retreat, on your next missions trip, on your next bus ride, let them see you with the Bible and see you engaging in the Bible. I would encourage youth pastors. I don't say stop using your phone and the YouVersion stuff on there. That stuff's awesome. I'm actually reading through the Bible in a year through the YouVersion, so I love it. But make sure that young people are seeing you engaging in a physical Word of God. When you are teaching, have the Word of God not open on your phone or just on the screen. Have the Word of God in your hand. Let them see that you're reading from it and using it, and encourage them then to follow your example.
On episode 160, I talked with Mike Hicks about how we can support teachers as youth leaders. Mike is from an organization called Christian Educators and specifically leads up their LIFT events. So not only did we talk about what those are all about, but we also talked about how churches can support teachers.
I think a mistake that sometimes churches make is that they see the public school as an evil entity, and that it could be really a dark ideology that's being pressed. But God calls people into dark places. He's called believers into those places. So if the school has lost its way and they're pushing ideology and things that are not biblical, and we still want godly people in those schools to be light and to be an influence. And I know that when there is a large group of Christians that kind of come together, like we'll talk about in a minute, it has great influence on a campus. And we've seen that over and over. The Christians that stay silent, they don't know who each other are. They all stay in their rooms. They leave Jesus in the parking lot in the morning. They pick him up after work. There's a lack of light and fruit happening. But when you get people together in community and they start praying for each other, for their school, for their kids, for their administrators, for their colleagues, and then they start living out their faith as the Lord guides them, there's great influence. We've seen the direction of schools change because a group of people prayed and then sometimes had to give voice. This is not a good thing we're doing. And it can change the heart of a king. The Lord can stir the hearts of kings and school administrators. Sometimes there needs to be a Daniel in there to help that come about.
Episode 162 was all about discipling teenage girls with Krista McBroom. Krista is an expert in this area. She's written devotionals for teen girls. She does events for teen girls, and she was a perfect person to talk to about how to really reach the girls in our youth group.
I think that small groups within student ministry, having small groups that are just for girls and just for guys. I mean, both of them need different things as they go through ministry. So having that group that they meet with weekly, just giving them the opportunity to form those relationships and those friendships, but then have that person leading that they can go to, that's, essentially their youth pastor, because it's their small group leader and they can encourage and they can speak to them. And so it starts, I think, just first within the ministry, making sure you have some sort of small groups that are just for the girls, but then also just doing small girls events, whether it's a weekend retreat, it can be just a fun girls night or a Saturday, just doing small things together that are intentional with the purpose of focusing on things that girls want to do, they open avenues for them to invite their friends to come and to be a part of the ministry, doing that stuff like that, as well as, there's always opportunities within any student ministry activity to, hey, we're going to give some time for the girls to do something and the guys to do something. And, where it's not a completely separate event, but creates the environment and the space for them to open up, or just to be girls, or just to be guys.
If you want to learn more about what you can do for the girls in your youth group, be sure to check out Krista's website and also contact her for even more tips, resources, and training. On episode 164, I talked with Travis Deans about how you can take the excitement and joy and energy from summer camp into the school campuses and not just leave it at camp in the summer.
I think the most important thing is for those of us who are in youth ministry to very intentionally lay out steps for students to take. Hey, here's how to carry this forward. I always tell students that, God has blessed you to be a blessing, right? We say that to adults too, right? That if God has blessed you, if God has done something in you, he didn't do that for you to keep it to yourself. That's never the New Testament way, right?
Yeah.
We're always called to share what God has given to us with those around us. So a way that students can take what God did in their hearts this summer into the school year is to make a list of friends they know that have not encountered God in the way that you have. They might be people you play on a sports team with, people you ride the bus with, people you're in class with, people you eat lunch with. Who are the people that you would love to see experience God working in their hearts the same way that he has worked in your heart? And so you make a list of those people. And we talk about this all the time. You pray for them intentionally, purposefully, daily, and you care about them. You build genuine, real, authentic friendships where you really care about who they are and what's going on in their lives. And as God provides the opportunity, you share the gospel with them, right? Prayer, care, and share. It's easy. The fact that it rhymes doesn't take away from the power. Literally praying for people that's the easiest thing you can do. But as you pray for people, you cannot help but to care about them. And as you care about them, the desire to share Jesus with them just grows and grows, and God will give that opportunity. So that's for me, that's kind of one of the easiest ways to take what God did over the summer and carry it with you into the school year.
Be sure to check out Travis's 9-month mission trip for even more resources on how you can approach the school year as a mission trip. On episode 166, I talked with Rick Eubanks about the origin of See You at the Pole, a global day of youth prayer that's been going on for 35 years. And not only did he talk about the origins of this amazing event, but also why prayer is so important.
It's the number one thing. I think Jesus modeled it. The disciples modeled it. Paul modeled it and commanded it and told us to do it. We're told to do it constantly. We're told to do it with lifted up holy hands. And still, it's the hardest thing we do. It's one of those things, it's transition in church service. We do more announcements than we do prayer. And if we can get back to an intentional prayer, I know ministries that have done that and saying the first 10 minutes, we're going to intercede for students. Those ministries are growing leaps and bounds because they're taking seriously intercessory prayer by name for these kids. Some of them are splitting up the school yearbook and saying, we're going to pray for this page. We're going to pray for this page. I've seen literally entire cultures of school changed. Olivia Williamson, our friend, with Claim Your Campus, saw her school change with 12 students, the entire culture of the school. Missouri City, Texas here, fighting all around the place. We prayed every day at noon to 12:30 from Memorial Day to September last year. And there were no fights, and the teachers didn't know what happened. But one of the coaches that was on that call with us said, I know what happened. So Jesus changed that. I just shared with you a minute ago, our school that I've adopted here in Spring, Texas, our students have been praying and prayer walking that school. They went back to school. They said, it's totally different. We don't know what's going on. But our principal, he's a Christian. People are talking to each other, and there's no fighting. And that used to be a real trouble school. And so it was great to hear from my students and to see the results of their own prayer walking, their footprints on campus, time and time again. But I've seen people change like Brian Jennings, and many, many times over. I was one of those students. I was prayed for by my sister, and her Sunday school class that prayed for Sandra's wayward brother. That's about the same time I heard those scriptures come to mind where God turned me around. So I'm the product of prayer too.
It was so cool to hear the story of See You at the Pole from the youth pastor whose students started it from the very beginning. In episode 168, I talked with a former student of mine, Ian Chrisler, about why internships are so important. Ian wants to be a youth pastor. He's pursuing a youth ministry degree at a Bible college, and he had just completed his summer internship with our church. And it was so cool to just talk with him about what he learned through the experience, but also why internships are so important. When I asked him what he'd say to others who are considering doing an internship, this is what he said.
Honestly, just do it. As much as that sounds silly and it's kind of stupid, like when you tell people, that, why should you go on this trip or why should you go to camp? Well, just do it. It's crazy how much it opens up the door. Because you can think, oh, well, I want to do this, but then you don't completely understand the ins and outs or the hard parts of it. But it's so fulfilling because you can go through and figure out, well, maybe I don't want to do middle school and high school, but I want to do kids. Because that was kind of a nail in the coffin for me, is that I don't want to do kids. But people can have the complete opposite experience. And then you can have people to hold your hand along the way instead of just getting thrown into your first youth pastor position and kind of have to figure it out all on your own.
If you're interested in starting an internship program or a residency program at your church, I would highly encourage you to check out Leadership Pathway and Internship Academy. On episode 170, I talked with Orlando Hale, who is an amazing youth leader who spent a lot of his time with incarcerated students. And I asked for some tips on how to work with this population of students.
I would say show up with the utmost humility. And what I mean by that is kind of a two-prong approach. One is being truly authentic, right? Like genuinely showing up as yourself. Don't hold anything back. Please know that when you talk to this group of people, the life that they have lived, nothing is off limits. These young people have questioned my marriage, have my fidelity to my marriage. They have questioned if I'm a good father. They have questioned if monogamy is a real thing in today's society. Like these kids do not care, and rightfully so, because I'm walking into their life as the most provocative person they've ever met. What do I mean by that? In their mind, for me to be a Black man married to a Black woman who is the mother of both of my kids, and I have a house and I pay my mortgage, and I'm like, everything that I do, the life that I live, to them is provocative. They've never seen it before. It doesn't exist. It's not a part of their reality. And so I'm now telling them that, hey, this is possible for you.
Yeah.
And they're like, this was never supposed to be possible for me. So I have to be humble in my approach and understanding that I am literally challenging their worldview and existing in this space. And you go into a space full of young people trying to preach and save the day, they're going to chew you up and spit you out. Go into a space of young people, especially incarcerated, who come from traumatic backgrounds, and you just show up and say, I'm here to love you and be present and learn from you. Now they're going to start asking you questions, and you have an opportunity to witness and to teach. And so you can approach humility with those two things. Know that you are provocative to them in your very existence, and know that you have to show up as a student first and be curious about their life and who they are, that gives you the equity to teach them. I think that would be really the way to do ministry in that context.
If you're looking to connect more with students who are either incarcerated currently or have been in the past, Orlando is a great resource to reach out to. And the final guest I want to highlight on this episode is Jonny Radcliff, who is on episode 173. And this was a different type of episode. I invited Jonny on to talk about 3 different student ministry hot takes. It was a really fun conversation, and here's what Jonny had to say about one of those hot takes involving how camp is not really that helpful because it just creates spiritual highs.
Now, there's this concept out there that's growing really popular is that, man, all these things are just camp highs. You know, the camp high you hear, and it's presented as this bad thing. But it's as you said, if you're building your experience and personally you're building your faith off of a weekend, you're going to be disappointed. Listen, if I built my marriage off of date night, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
But you do need those peak experiences to remind yourself how good it can be. Now, once you come off that retreat and that seclusion and that perfect environment goes away and reality hits, you come back to earth. But we got to stop being afraid of that. That's my big message. We got to stop being afraid that teens aren't as fire as they were when we were on date night. That's reality. And we're the same way. I mean, listen, that Paul talks about milk to meat. And I think about that a lot, is that as youth leaders, we have a responsibility to wean spiritual babes, right? Like it's our job to help them grow to be self-feeders. And sometimes we create these amazing experiences that cause people to just latch on. And after a while, you got to switch to meat. I've been making it a lot more awkward than that, but you know what I mean? Like after some point, you got to be done with milk. So, you know, and it's something for every youth leader to pause and reflect and say, am I creating self-feeders? Or am I creating people who are dependent on me for their sustenance? So if it's your program and your retreat that is the sole sustenance of your students, then when they move on, their faith will too. So if you can get a student to the point where they're managing their faith on their own, where these experiences are good additions that you're constantly working out, that's the sweet spot. But if you're coming in saying, man, these retreats, they come back and their lives are no different, and you know, they were serious on this weekend and now they're distracted, and it's like, well, okay, you got to step back and manage your expectations of retreats.
I hope this has been a fun episode for you, but also a helpful one as well. And as I look back at 2025, I think of all these amazing guests, from Derry to Ashley to Mike to Dan, Ken, Mike, Krista, Travis, Rick, Ian, Orlando, and Jonny. I'm so thankful that they would take some of their time to talk to me and to talk to you as well. And all of these guests, I know, would love to continue connecting with you. So be sure to check out all their resources, but also reach out to them on social media or their websites. All of those are going to be listed in the individual show notes for each of their episodes. As we come to the end of another calendar year, I just want to say thank you so much for being with us here in 2025. It's been an honor, again, to do this podcast, and I really couldn't do it without you. I mean, I guess technically I could put out episodes, but I probably wouldn't keep doing it if it wasn't for you listening. So thank you so much for being here, for sharing this with others, for leaving positive reviews on your favorite podcast apps. Really helps the podcast grow, but it's also just a huge thing for me. And thank you to all those who have joined our prayer team or our financial partnership team. It's a huge honor to have you on either of those teams, or some of you for both of those teams. And again, as we come to the end of a calendar year, know that end of year gifts are a huge thing. So if you've been thinking and praying about partnering with me and my ministry with National Network of Youth Ministries, be sure to follow the links in the show notes, or just head over to nnym.org/Steve Cullum, and you can give online, or you can find ways to send in a check if you want to do it that way. And also find ways that your church can give and support me as a missionary. This podcast is really an extension of what I do with National Network of Youth Ministries. And speaking of which, if you have not connected with other youth leaders, be sure to get connected. We want to help you do that. So please reach out to me, and we can help you get connected with other youth leaders in your area and also online. We are not meant to do life or ministry alone. Well, as we close out this episode, I know that it's going to be releasing on Christmas Eve. And so Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy New Year. Can't wait to see you in 2026 with our next episode. I'm really, really excited about it. We've already recorded it. It's in the hopper. It's ready to go, and it's going to be here before you know it. But Until then, be sure to stay connected, and may God bless your ministry.